All right, let's dive right into this explainer on what procurement actually is. Think of this as the ultimate guide and tip sheet for your procurement team. We're going to peel back the layers of this really fascinating field and uncover how it is, quite literally, the true engine of any successful business. For a lot of people, procurement just sounds like buying things. But as we're going to discover together today, it is so much more strategic, complex, and vital than that.
To understand why this matters so much, just think about this staggering figure for a second: 15%. According to World Bank estimates, public procurement alone accounted for roughly 15% of global GDP in 2021. That means government purchasing is a colossal driver of the entire global economy. It's shaping markets, it's influencing global trade, and it's driving massive economic shifts. And when we pivot over to the private sector, the impact is just as monumental.
Bring it a little closer to home, and you'll find that a company's procurement function typically accounts for more than half of its total budget. We're not just talking about a back-office task of ordering pens and printer paper here. Imagine the immense weight of managing more than 50% of the cash going out the door. The folks handling this are directly responsible for the financial health, the agility, and the ultimate competitive advantage of the organization. They hold the purse strings that can absolutely make or break profit margins.
So, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll define the procurement puzzle. Second, sourcing versus purchasing. Third, the core procurement process. Fourth, measuring success and risk. And finally, the future of procurement. Part 1, the procurement puzzle defined. Because let's be real, it's way more than just buying.
The real kicker to grasp here is that procurement is a comprehensive value generator. It's not just hitting add to cart. It's an entire organizational function designed to safeguard the company against fraud, collusion, and supply chain breakdowns. Think about it. When a dedicated team promotes fair and open competition for vendor contracts, they're actively preventing backdoor deals and unchecked spending. That rigorous oversight directly protects the bottom line in very real, measurable terms. Every single dollar spent is heavily scrutinized to ensure maximum return.
To break that down a bit further, teams manage two highly distinct categories: direct and indirect spend. A great way to visualize this is to picture an automaker. Direct procurement is securing the raw steel and the microchips that actually go into building the cars. That requires incredibly deep supply chain management because it directly impacts your manufacturing output. Indirect procurement? That's buying the software licenses, the factory floor lighting, or, the coffee that keeps the accountants awake. It's the non-production spend that keeps daily operations running smoothly.
Moving on to Part 2, sourcing versus purchasing. Time to clear up some confusion. We really need to clarify some notoriously murky terminology here, because confusing sourcing with purchasing is a trap so many organizations fall right into. Sourcing is proactive. It's your long-term strategic play where you evaluate the entire market, figure out exactly who is going to provide your supplies, and build lasting relationship channels. Purchasing, on the other hand, is reactive. It's the tactical, day-to-day transactional execution of actually placing the order, streamlining the flow of goods, and paying the invoice. When you contrast the two, it really clicks. Notice how sourcing zeroes in on choosing the right partners and negotiating terms with a strictly strategic lens. It's got fewer steps, but it has massive long-term implications for building robust supply chains. Procurement, meanwhile, is the big umbrella. It encompasses a much broader scope, beautifully blending that strategic sourcing with tactical, everyday purchasing to fulfill complex internal needs. Think of it like a timeline for operations management. Sourcing acts as the initial strategic step where relationships and contracts are formed. That seamlessly feeds into purchasing, which is the execution phase, where the ordering and replenishment actually happen. And procurement is the overarching sequence that houses both of these vital functions, ensuring the strategy perfectly matches the execution.
All right, Part 3, the core procurement process, step by step.
Let's walk through how best-in-class teams actually capture this value, starting right in the pre-tender phase. Say a department realizes they desperately need to upgrade their servers. Day one is just recognizing that need. Then, they move through rigorous internal approvals, vetting the budget, and issuing competitive requests for proposals, or RFPs. This methodical timeline ensures that by the time you reach week 4 and sit down for contract negotiations, you've analyzed multiple quotes and you hold all the leverage to secure a phenomenal deal. But once the ink is dry on that contract, it's go time for tactical execution. Your team is monitoring timeframes, conducting quality checks, and processing invoices. And let's be totally clear, this is not just administrative busywork. Maintaining centralized records and doing strict document verification before a single dime is paid is the unsung hero work of any business. It directly prevents fraudulent spending, catches billing errors, and fundamentally protects the financial integrity of the company. Now, with complex outsourcing, it's a bit of a tightrope walk. You have to carefully balance three critical elements: the client, the vendor, and the project itself. If you ignore any one of these, the whole thing falls apart. For instance, if you squeeze a vendor too hard on price and ignore their need for a viable margin, they might start cutting corners on materials. Suddenly, your project suffers a massive quality drop, which ultimately hurts the client. It literally has to be a symbiotic balance to work. Part 4. Measuring success and risk. Because these are the metrics that actually matter. A process is only as good as its outcomes, right? And procurement teams are walking through a minefield of risks that they have to proactively mitigate. One of the absolute biggest hurdles right now is evolving regulatory compliance. Environmental laws, like the Supply Chain Act, are forcing companies to make their entire multi-tiered supply networks completely transparent. This is exactly what keeps executives up at night. One hidden environmental violation from a third-tier supplier can lead to massive fines and catastrophic reputational damage.
So, how do you navigate that?
Well, organizations rely on rigorous digital transformation frameworks. It's a comprehensive 7-step journey. You deeply assess your current operating model, identify areas for improvement, generate options, appraise them, build a rock-solid business case, and decide exactly how outcomes will be monitored. Doing this guarantees that your tactical improvements perfectly align with the company's overarching strategic vision.
You know the old saying, what gets measured gets managed? Tracking specific KPIs isn't just a feel-good exercise. Take the circular material use rate, for example, which simply means how much of what we're using has actually been used before. Tracking this, alongside things like supplier sustainability scorecards, directly influences the total cost of ownership. It ensures the organization stays way ahead of those tightening environmental regulations we were just talking about.
And finally, Part 5, the future of procurement. We're talking digital and circular.
Procurement is sprinting away from that old, wasteful, linear model of take, make, and dispose. The future is all about regenerative circular economies, and the financial upside is absolutely staggering. Adopting circular sourcing strategies can drastically cut material costs by up to 30%. That is a massive competitive advantage. It's a total paradigm shift from simply buying goods to closing material loops, extending product life cycles, and treating waste as a highly valuable resource.
Which brings us to design for circularity. It dictates that long-term value generation starts at the absolute beginning of the supply chain. Here is a brilliant real-world example. Instead of a company buying massive industrial batteries and having to pay to dispose of them a few years later, modern teams negotiate service contracts. The supplier retains ownership of the batteries, handles all the maintenance, and then takes them back to recycle the raw materials when they're done. It's brilliant.
Of course, to track complex service agreements like those battery lifespans, you need some serious technological firepower. That's where digital enablers come in, and they are total game changers. We're talking AI for predictive analytics, machine learning to optimize material flows, and blockchain for tamper-proof traceability. Going back to that battery example, by attaching IoT sensors to them, the team monitors service-level agreements in real time. It basically turns the procurement department into a high-tech nerve center for the entire business.
So I'm going to leave you with a question to really chew on. Take a hard look at how things are operating today. Is your procurement team merely buying supplies, or have they evolved into a strategic, value-generating engine for the whole business? Challenge yourself to elevate the approach from tactical purchasing to true strategic sourcing leadership. Because when it's fully unleashed, procurement isn't just an expense line on a spreadsheet, it is absolutely the ultimate tool for driving sustainable, long-term growth.